coming in from the shadows. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Angie, or you can call me Oni. We are going to be doing that color and style video that I was telling you guys about in the last one. We're actually going to be tackling traditional coloring styles that was digital, but we're going to be doing this traditionally. I can't speak. So, I guess we should get into the video. Let's do it. I'm going to actually be breaking this down into categories of mediums today. In the last video, we kind of broke it down by the actual style, but finding your style actually in traditional art comes a lot from what you use and what mediums you use, because you have to have a certain process that works well with those mediums, and the process can lead you down a variety of different ways that you end up making your art look. Fun fact about today's video, I drew every single one of these myself, so they do not all look the same, but they are, I guess, like the same. Yeah, those are the drawings that we're going to be using today to color on, and we're gonna go through the mediums that we're gonna use today. Actually, I have a little challenge for you guys. I want you guys to tell me which one of these drawings you think is the original, or which one you think the other drawings are based off of. Comment down in the comments, and then I will tell you guys in the next video. Okay, so we're going to actually go over the mediums that I chose for us to use today. We have watercolor, we have gouache, we have colored pencils, we have alcohol-based markers, and we have acrylic. I'll kind of explain them as I'm going over them, like how much they cost, how accessible they are they easy, medium, hard to get into, etc. Please keep in mind that with all of these mediums, you can mix and match them. So, without further ado, let's get into the coloring. Hello, voiceover Angie here. We're talking about how I felt during all of these mediums. So, for watercolor, I always wet the page first just to spread the color more evenly. Watercolor is one of those mediums where you have to go lightest to darkest, and you can't go vice versa unless, of course, you use masking fluid or something like that. Also, ignore the fact that I'm not using my medium correctly, because I'm using things straight from the pan, which is usually not great. Mixing colors just helps you get more versatility. And then here I am going in with just to show the eye, because my eye process for every medium is different, especially if I need to figure out how I'm going to plan it and layer it correctly. So here's the finished piece. I don't like it that much, but it is what it is. And as far as watercolors go, it's a pretty cheap medium. No art is really super cheap. For watercolors, you could get a decent palette or decent tubes of paint for around $15 to $30. That's a pretty broad range, but it's because watercolors can come in tubes or they can come in pans. I decided to use my own pan that I made out of tube watercolors, because you'll end up upgrading them later, as you do with all mediums. And then the brushes, you actually want to get designated watercolor brushes, not all mediums, because they don't hold as much water as you would like them to. We also have the actual paper. I use watercolor paper because it's just less prone to rippling. You gotta have containers for your water, or you can make a little contraption. I have one, everything like that. And then something to clean your brushes in between. The water is not enough, so you can use a towel or you can use paper towels. Yes, altogether the cost of this medium would probably run you about $50, maybe $60, depending on just exactly what you find useful or not. Watercolor, the medium itself, does require certain techniques, so it's on the medium side of the skill level. Your paper can only take so much water, So definitely think about how you're going to layer them, etc. It requires a lot of thought. And then I'm trying different camera shots, so if you're very confused on what is going on, just know that I am too. Hee hee ha ha, I am back. So gouache is silly. It's the most silly medium of them all, because you can go dark to light with them. However, you risk the fact that you might pick up paint underneath what you already put down. But also, you'll hear me mention this later. If you don't use your white, you're not using it right. All right? That's just how gouache works. And then also I'm switching between angles because I was experimenting with camera angles and stuff. So we're going to ignore that for right now unless you like it. It is what it is. So, yeah. I was trying to keep the lighting consistent throughout all the pieces. So, yeah. There's that. And then here is the finished piece. I also cut off half the face in the time-lapse on my phone, so slay. Yes, you've made it. You've made it to the second medium. We have gouache. Gouache is the same as watercolor. Literally. Almost exactly the same. The only difference is the opacity. I would consider this one of the hardest mediums to work with just because of the learning curve, I guess you could say. You must put the white in the colors. I don't care if you think you need it or not. You have to at some point. You have to. I have both pan gouaches and I also have tube gouaches. I prefer tube because of how pigmented and actually opaque they are, and you want opaque. Also want containers for your water, and you want paper towels or a towel of some kind, like I said previously, for the watercolors, just because painting in general requires most of these things because it's a lot of setup. So keep that in mind when you're painting. You can still use all of the same things that you use for gouache that you use for watercolor. Doesn't really matter. It's more of just the extra color requirement. Okay, so here, this is actually, I believe my phone was recording this part. I'm not totally sure. I don't think I got the entire process because my camera died, and there was just a lot of technical difficulties, but I love this angle here. So with colored pencils, I was not doing this right. I swear I know how to use my mediums. I just did not have my head in the game. So with colored pencils, you don't want to press too hard at the beginning because you're supposed to be layering all of the colors to make new colors, essentially. It's like mixing paint, but you're doing it on the paper and nothing's gonna dry or stay wet, so you can't you know what I mean? So there's that, and don't do what I did and press too hard unless you like vibrant colors like this. Yeah, so that's the finished piece. It's not my favorite, but it's alright, you know? You've made it to the third medium, which is in fact colored pencils. I used Prismacolors in this video. You just need the colored pencils and paper. The type of paper is where it starts to get a little finicky. You can use Bristol, which is what I use. It's a very thick but smooth paper. Also use the Arteza colored pencils. I like both the textures and consistencies of both of them. You do need to spend a little bit more on colored pencils just to get the correct formula.
Secret formula!
Yeah, and then as far as difficulty goes, if you know how to layer correctly, it's very therapeutic, so kind of easy. Depends on the person. So I put some ASMR stuff pieces in here. I love the camera angles that I did here, and all that gabba shlaba goo. I'll try to be quiet during those ASMR pieces because I hate marker ASMR, but you guys probably like it. Anywho, that's enough of that. So, if you haven't noticed already, my style changes drastically, even though these pictures and these drawings are generally the same. They all come out super, super different in the end, and that's just because of the way that I'm forced to use different techniques. And throughout the entirety of each piece, I'm like forced to layer differently, make sure that my stuff isn't bleeding, because like you have to have the right paper, and you know, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into using different mediums. And specifically layering is what you have to pay the most amount of attention to, especially if you're going to render it correctly. So yeah, this is the end for me. Oh, would you look at that? Well done. It's kind of mediocre. Hey, yeah. For our fourth medium, we have markers. Girl, why are you picking the most expensive medium?
Plastic side-eye.
You are special. However, I will admit with markers, it's one of like the nicest mediums because it will stay smooth if you get the correct quality markers. In this video, I'm using Copics. Don't come for me. They were a gift. Copics are around $8 a marker. I know. If you go any cheaper than that, you can get like an Ohuhu set, which is a lot cheaper than Copics. People like to say that their quality is pretty similar, but if you go with any other alcohol-based markers that are lesser than that, they have a tendency to have a quality difference, which usually makes for difficult blending and makes it really hard for any beginner to get into them. Copics make it super, super easy. So easy. Depending on the quality of your markers is what's actually going to make the difficulty hard or easy. So. Here's me doing a time lapse of another one of those drawings of like the person's face and whatnot. Yeah, it was pain. I I painted an entire thing the wrong color, and then I couldn't see my sketch underneath, so I needed to redo it. That is definitely something you need to keep in mind with both gouache and acrylics, is that you can't actually see your stuff underneath if you put too much layers on. And here you'll kind of see that I mix my colors for acrylics and stuff like that on my palette knife. I don't like to put it on the palette. I'm just kind of weird like that. It makes it harder for me to mix it. And then also with the Royale colors, I used like a burnt ochre color to make, and white to make the skin. But if you don't have that, it's just kind of a trial and error of mixing your like yellow and red, and then with black, and then over and over again with white and stuff. Just a note. And also, this was the smoothest acrylic has ever gone for me, so slay! For the last medium number 5, we have acrylics. The way that you use acrylics can be very, very different. You need, of course, your water containers. You need your paper towels. You need the actual acrylics themselves. For the acrylic, I'm using Liquitex Basics, Winsor & Newton, just for my black and my white, and then Royale watercolors. Royale acrylic paints, just because they have more color diversity in these ones. Acrylics are so cheap. With these ones, they are known for being pigmented, and you can water them down a lot and still get same amount of pigment, or put a lot of fixative in them and you'll still get a lot of pigment. Be very mindful of how you're using them. When you use them on paper, they are a lot easier to work with, in my personal opinion. Using acrylics on canvas requires a lot more different stuff to actually make them work correctly. You need something to prime the canvas, you need a lot of different fixatives, you need all this. So do your research when it comes to acrylic. I personally don't like acrylic, but after making this video, I really like it a lot more when I use it on multimedia paper. don't use it on a canvas like me without primer. Yeah. Anywho's, this is the part of the video where I make some honorable mentions on the mediums that I didn't use, such as oil, because I refuse to put it in my house because there are some toxic parts in the paints that I just don't want to learn how to dispose of it properly. And then there's other things, but you know, you've reached the end, so cool. So I see you've made it to the end of the video. This was agony for me. I'm not gonna lie. This entire video was agony. It took me a whole month to make this video. And it's mostly because I have a life outside of making art, unfortunately. I wish I could do it full time. And on top of that, I don't like coloring. I've always hated coloring. Like, it taught me a lot. This video taught me a lot, and I hope that it will teach you things or even give you a little aha moment of what you want to try as far as mediums go. How I approached each one did not make me the most proud, and I was actually rethinking the entire, like, all of my pieces because they just didn't come out how like I wished that they came out. People in my life told me that they looked fine, so I continued on. And that's why you guys are getting an actual post, so slay! In the next upcoming videos, I'm hoping to start our AP art redo. If you have any other video suggestions for me, definitely let me know in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. So, toodles! No, I don't have a sponsor. Lamau. That would be really funny. If you dare. That was terrible. Yeah. Hello, hello. You've made it to the third. Jeez. Okay. I'm not fancy. I don't have a studio. I wish. Anyway. When I'm with you. Oh my fucking. Find cups laying around your house. I know you have them. Don't act like you don't. The third medium, which is... Wait, what is the third medium?